today we're pleased to have with us again Anne, who's coming to us, as you know from the last time you learned that she is an ordained Unity minister, and we're very happy to have her with us. So please come on.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I don't know if the light's on. It's not, is it? Okay, I project pretty well without a mic. Let us begin with prayer. And I invite you, if it's comfortable for you, to close your outer eyes and just open your inner eyes. And let's just breathe together. And let's just take 3 slow, deep breaths. And on the first breath, we affirm that we release our power of elimination. And on the second breath, we affirm that we are present. And the third breath, that we are open. I release, I am present, I am open. And let's just take these words into our awareness. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know. Be still. Be. And in the stillness of our being, God lives and moves and has his being. And with a recognition of that, we open ourselves up and we're returned to our service with gratitude in our hearts. We say, thank you, Divine Presence, Mother, Father, God. Amen. And thank you again for having me back. I so appreciate it. I enjoyed it so much when I was here the last time. Had a lot of fun. And as you know, I like to tell stories, and I usually begin with a story. And I heard a story about a group of 3 men, and that card, it just doesn't meant to stay in place. And they had the practice of going out to have coffee together in the morning. They were retired gentlemen. And so they were together, and there were 3. George was one of the gentlemen. And they were asking George they knew that his anniversary was coming up. And they said, well, George, what are you going to do for your 50th anniversary? And George says, well, I put a lot of thought into it. And for my 40th anniversary, I took my beloved wife to Hawaii. And they said, well, how are you going to top taking her to Hawaii? He says, well, I really love that woman, and I really missed her, so I'm going to go back to Hawaii and pick her up and bring her back home. So my topic for today is love. And we're very loose in our definitions of love, aren't we? How we use the word love. Sometimes we say we love chocolate, we love ice cream. And I know in the past I've done several different lessons where I talked about how the different languages have different words for those different types of love. But in the English language, we're limited. We only have the word love. So my topic for today is not going to be ice cream love or lollipop love or chocolate love. It's going to be divine love. And in Genesis, we're told we're created in the image and likeness of God, male and female. He created us. And we also learn in 1 John that God is love. So we're created in the image and likeness of love. And we have within us all of the 12 powers, ending with elimination was always the funny one for me. But but it's so true that we do have to eliminate, it's a really powerful, powerful power. But love is the power located in our body. When Charles Fillmore wrote the book, he called it the 12 Powers of Man. But really, there are divine qualities within us, that when we're created in the image and likeness of God, that those powers are within us, the power of faith and love and wisdom, all of those powers that we learn, and also elimination, that we learn each week. As you honor each month, in other words. And so I think when I was here the last time, I talked about that we're not in God as a raisin is in a bun, but we're in God as a wave is in the ocean. So we're the same substance of God. We are. And so my topic for today is the scent of love. And I'm going to explain that to you a little later. Everybody always says, how do you spell it? Scent? Scent is S-C-E-N-T, scent. Because our sense of scent, our sense of smelling is the strongest memories we have are associated with our scent of smell. Like we smell the turkey cooking, we have memories of family gatherings. Perhaps you have the memories of apple blossoms when you were a child, or peach blossoms wherever you lived. And it brings you right back there really quickly. It's a very strong, it has associated with very strong emotions. And so I have another story for you, and it's about a man, and he was, it was the fall of the year, and it was in a city, doesn't matter the name of the city, and he was shuffling along the sidewalk, and he was thinking to himself, he was thinking that the winter was coming, and that he was going to spend some lonely, lonely nights in his cold, cold apartment. And he was not looking forward to it. And as he was shuffling along, his foot rested upon a small little piece of paper. And he picked up the paper, and he saw scrawled on the paper in crayon, "Whoever finds this, I love you. Whoever finds this, I need you. I ain't got anyone to even talk to. So whoever finds this, I love you." And he looked to his side, and there was a big iron fence. And beyond the iron fence was a large brick building. And he looked up, and there in a window, he saw a little girl with her nose pinched right up against the window, waving anxiously at him. And thus began a friendship. And he did not have lonely winter nights or lonely winter days, but he had a friendship with this little girl who was an orphan. And he would create for her little carvings out of wood, and he'd place them in the rungs of the fence. And she would create for him beautiful drawings of trees and butterflies and beautiful women dressed in beautiful gowns. And they laughed at the snow together, and they popped puddles in the spring. And then June came, and she placed her little paper with her drawings in the fence. But for several days, no one came to pick it up. And she knew in her heart what had happened. And so she went up to her room, and she got out her paper, and she got out her crayons, and she wrote, "Whoever finds this, I love you. Whoever finds this, I need you. Whoever finds this," as it went on. So the point to the story is, we think about love, and we think about sentimental love and romantic love, and that we're searching for love. But our power of love is to give love, to form an attachment, to love. Love is a verb. Now, when I was a nurse in the early 70s, I had my nurses training at a large Chicago hospital, pediatric hospital. And there was a diagnosis, and it was called failure to thrive. And these were little infants that didn't seem to progress. They didn't gain weight. They didn't seem to follow the developmental patterns that were expected. And so they named it failure to thrive. They later found out that this was a prevalent diagnosis in orphans, children that were left in institutions, and they just did not thrive. They didn't have the opportunity to form. Originally, they thought it was because they weren't touched, and that was part of it, that we all need physical touch, especially as infants. We need to be nurtured and cradled. But they found out, more importantly, they weren't able to form attachments like normal baby would with the mother and the father. And we see this today. You may perhaps have read about it, that these orphans that are brought over from Romania and Russia, that they perhaps spend 2 or 3 years in an orphanage, and when they come here, they have what they now call it an attachment disorder. They haven't been able to form an attachment, so they run into a lot of problems, the parents who adopt them do. Now, to get on with my nursing career, in 2001, I became a hospice nurse. And part of my hospice training was to learn these various different diagnoses that allowed people to come onto the hospice census. And I was very surprised to learn that failure to thrive was one of the diagnoses. And it had to do with individuals that didn't seem to be thriving, that didn't seem to gain weight, that just were on a decline. And I had one of these patients, and she only weighed about 70 pounds, and she was in one of my nursing facilities where I had my hospice census. And her name was Virginia Martin. And the other thing about Virginia, she also had an issue with some skin conditions. So they had her on a very special mattress. It was like a mattress that wouldn't cause any pressure to any area of her skin. And so I remember the first time I met Virginia, I went in there and introduced myself and started asking questions of her. And she also had dementia, but she never wanted to answer about herself. She always wanted to find out about me. She just laugh and smile. The thing is that she wasn't allowed outside of her room because she was on this very special mattress. And so I brought this issue to my hospice team, and we worked together, and we decided, well, then perhaps we can apply to Medicare to see if they would allow her to have a jerry chair where we would pull her onto the chair and take her out to the activity room. Well, most nursing facilities, as you probably know if you've ever visited one, they have a lot of activities for the patients. They have musicians who come in, magicians, they have the opportunity to meet with each other. And so when we were allowed, we were able to get the order for Virginia to get onto her special chair, bring her out to the activity room. And I'd come to visit her, and there she'd be singing along with everybody, laughing. She'd be waving at me. And it was such a wonderful intervention for Virginia. And you know, Virginia began to gain weight. And when I left my hospice, I was with the hospice for about a year. She was almost to the point where they were considering taking her off of hospice. Now that's my example, that she had a lot of love within her to give. And we all do. We all have a lot of love within us to give. And when we're not able to do that, we have a failure to thrive. We don't thrive. So anyway, so I'll get on to the scent of love. And I found this somehow in the writings of Scott Peck. He wrote you're familiar with, everybody's probably familiar with Scott Peck. And he wrote a book, The Different Drummer, about communities, the importance of communities. He said that we don't need community for sustenance. We need it to have any real meaning in our life. To have any real meaning in our life, we need a sense of community. And he talks about the early apostles, the early Christian church, and that after Jesus left. And of course, we remember the new commandment that you love one another as I have loved you. And the early apostles really took that to heart, and they lived it. They really lived it. Like our fifth principle for unity, live it! And it's said that people would see them gathered together, and they would see how they looked at each other, how they talked to each other, how they really listened and were present to each other. And they'd be walking on, and they'd be drawn back to that scent of love, like a bee is drawn back to a flower. And so that's how I got the idea for the scent of love. He also talks in that book, or I think it was in that book, that you get the idea of the power of the scent, that there was a group of soldiers who were stationed in France during World War II, and while there was a lavender factory on the hill above where they were stationed, and they said at 5 o'clock every day, the people who were employed in the lavender factory would be coming down the hills, and they'd be on foot or on bicycle or in cars, and the scent of lavender would permeate the whole entire territory. So that's what the scent of love can do. It can permeate when we can bring that scent of love that is within us out into the world. I'll read you, Scott Peck quotes another author whose name is Keith Miller, and he wrote a book called The Scent of Love, and it says, "What is it about the first century church that attracted people? Above all, it was the way those early Christians lived, with honesty and intimacy, caring and support, courage and contagious joy, love, God's love, hovered about the New Testament church like a haunting, beautiful scent, and people were irresistibly drawn to it, risking rejection and persecution to become part of the family of believers." Now, this scent of love is a very attractive thing, and I have experienced it in my life. And the very first time I think I really experienced it was in 12-step. I was very active in 12-step, Al-Anon, and Codependence Anonymous. And this isn't a sentimental, agree with you kind of love. It's the kind of love that really listened, that didn't see you as a victim, that saw within you that you had the courage to overcome, that you had within you the courage to come out of this, to move past it, and the courage to see with your partner, whoever it is, I don't like to use labels like the addict, that they had that same ability within them. They saw strengths. Now, I've seen it often in spiritual community, and perhaps that's why you folks are gathered here together. Perhaps you felt it here, and that's why you come every Sunday, and that's really wonderful. Well, a while back, I also used to do some guest speaking, and when I was between ministries in 2011, and there was a little church in Virginia that was about an hour from my home in West Virginia, and I used to go speak there. And one Sunday morning I arrived, and seated in the very front row was a man who was obviously homeless. His clothing was so threadbare. I had never seen any clothing so threadbare. It was the summertime, so he had shorts and a t-shirt, and his shoes were like shredding before you. So I saw him, I kind of smiled at him, but the board president, and her name was Sarah, she came over to me and she said, "Ann, I want you to meet our guest." And she introduced me to him and told me his story. And his story was he was traveling from Pennsylvania to South Carolina trying to reconnect with his family. Well, when the service began, they again introduced him to everybody as their guest. They beheld the Christ in him. And afterwards, we had a pot like what we're having today, and they fed him. And then they had a house next door that was part of the property. And they invited him to come over to the house and take a bath. And they got him clothing and shoes, and then they sent him on his way. Now, there were probably about 30 people gathered there that Sunday, and I don't remember what I said, and I'm sure nobody remembered what I said, but they remember the scent of love that was given to that man. They remember the scent of love. Now, I saw the scent of love a month or so ago on the TV, on the 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock news. Don't see it very often. Last time I talked about duality, that we're trained in duality. Most of us are trained in duality. And myself as a nurse, I was taught to look for problems. We would have to formulate a problem list with each of our patients. So we're taught that. So, don't be hard on yourselves if you tend to, look for problems or discover problems. But it was the story about the trial that was going on in Texas. Do you remember that? It was Amber Geyer. She was the female police officer, and she was convicted of the murder of Botham Jean. And then an African-American young man, and they invited the family to come up and say something to the convicted murderer, this young woman. And the 18-year-old brother of Botham Jean, and his name was Brant Jean, got up on the stand and said, "I forgive you, and I love you as a person, and I want to give you a hug." When I think of it, it tears me up. It teared me up the first couple of times I saw it on TV. Now that is the scent of love. When I was in seminary, and we used to do prayer journals, so I would pray and meditate, and then sometimes my writing seemed to turn into poems. So I wrote a poem called The Scent of Love, and I'd like to share it with you today. In a dream, I saw how the world could be if everyone was free from prejudice, hunger, competition, or fear, knowing God's presence is everywhere. In my dream, I traveled around the earth, watching peace, love, cooperation, and forgiveness give birth, seeing people gather and grasp each other's hand in the Arctic, the mountains, the deserts, or prairie lands, faces of ebony, bronze, or ivory white, looking and seeing with spiritual sight, generating healing energy that is a mist, lifts above, then showers the earth with the scent of love. Now, my friends, grasp the hand of another. Acknowledge them as your sister or brother. Look into their eyes and say, "Namaste, namaste." Generate healing energy that is a mist, lifts above, then showers the earth with the scent of love. Namaste. And let us go into meditation. And let's just again take a deep breath. And if it's comfortable for you, let's again close our outer eyes and open our inner eyes. And let's just breathe. And let's just stretch out our inspiration and our expiration, maybe to the count of 4. Let's breathe in, 1, 2, 3, 4. And again out, 1, 2, 3, 4. And let's just bring that breath to our heart space, located at the center of our chest. And let's just breathe. And as we breathe into that heart space, we feel it open and expand. We feel the love of who and what we are. And we know that the love begins with us. I'm going to give us some affirmations or prayers that will allow us to bless ourselves and others. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I feel connected and calm. May I accept myself just as I am. May I be happy. Now I'd like you to bring into your awareness a loved one. Your beloved partner, your beloved friend, your beloved child. Could be a beloved pet. And let's bless them. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you feel connected and calm. May you accept yourself just as you are. May you be happy. And now I'd like you to bring into your awareness someone that you perhaps know, but perhaps not so well, and we'll give a blessing to them. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you feel connected and calm. May you accept yourself just as you are, and may you be happy. And now I'd like you to bring into your awareness someone that perhaps you've had a conflict with or a disagreement. And we'll bring this blessing to them. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you feel connected and calm. May you accept yourself just as you are. May you be happy. And we'll give this blessing to all beings. May all beings be filled with loving kindness. May all beings feel connected and calm. May all beings accept themselves just as they are. May all beings be happy. And let's just rest in the silence, feeling that loving scent of love permeating each of us and spreading out into this room. And now feeling that healing, harmonizing energy of love present in each of us and in this room, coming together in oneness, I invite you, if you have any prayer intentions, to speak those names or those intentions, or just hold them in your consciousness. I'd like to bring all of the intentions that are in the prayer box here present with us. We'd like to send a special blessing to all of our world leaders, our national leaders, and our local leaders. Anywhere in the world where there is disharmony, especially the schools that have experienced violence this last week. And again, with our spiritual eyes open, we look upon these intentions. We see them whole and complete. We see them having all of the resources they need within them. We feel them breathing in unison with us. And we see them being lifted up in consciousness. And we see the Spirit of the living God going before them, making all the crooked places straight. And we see the scent of love growing vibrant in our world today. Thank you and namaste.